First of all, I want to talk a little bit about Ms. Adams' point that she was making, and that is certainly I worked at Main Justice. I worked in the criminal division with Assistant Attorney General Chertoff. I understand how much paper comes across your desk and everyone else's desk, and I understand that time is limited and you have to do the best you can to process a lot of information. I get that. But I think Ms. Adams makes, she raises a good point, and that is, at what point do you believe the Assistant Attorney General or someone else had or has an obligation to, particularly in your case with Lanny Brewer, because you have a close relationship or a long-standing relationship with him, at what point is there an obligation for one of these senior officials to raise something like this to your level? I understand that they're in briefings and you can't read them all. There's a lot of stuff that my staff puts in my inbox, but they know that if there's something really urgent, they don't stick it in my inbox. They call me, they come in my office, they get in my face and say, hey, this is very important. So this is not just an operation, or this was not just an operation. This was, in fact, an international operation if taken, if looked at broadly, because of the consequences of these firearms going across a border, and that was part of the plan. So my question would be, at what point is someone expected to raise something like this, knowing that if it were maybe Canada or the UK or some other country, or we were trying to let guns walk, we certainly would, I would think, we would want to inform them or work with them. Help me understand what your perspective is on that, because at some level, someone has to walk into your office and say, this should not be occurring. And I want to give you one more fact on that. Mr. Brewer indicated that when he learned about gun walking in early 2010, instead of calling the head of the ATF or telling you, he just asked two of his deputies to raise concerns with folks at the ATF. And so, in light of what has happened, who and when should they come to you about something like this?
No, I think that's a very legitimate question. And Lanny Brewer has indicated that the information that he obtained about Operation Wide Receiver and the gun walking that happened there, or the failure of the mission to stop the flow of guns into Mexico, that is something that he should have brought to my attention, to the attention of the Deputy Attorney General. And I think that's the kind of information that, in fact, should be. If we had an instance where you had evidence of gun walking, either the assistant, whoever had possession of that information, the Assistant Attorney General, people on my staff, that's the kind of information that should have been brought to my attention. And as Mr. Brewer indicated, he said that he made a mistake in not doing so.
Are there set policies on that now?
I'm not sure there's set policies as much as, you know, you've got to look at this information and you've got to just know what are the kinds of things that are routine and need not be brought to somebody's attention, that which is important. I'm
limited on time, so I'm going to try to move quickly here. I would just suggest that regardless of what other issues might arise at the Department of Justice, you might want to put gun walking on a list somewhere of something that raises flags. The other question, I see my time is running out. I want to go back to what Mr. Lundgren asked about earlier. He referred to a CBS article that talked about using anecdotal cases to support a demand letter on long gun multiple sales, basically using a situation created by the government to support a policy argument folks in the government want to make. And your response was that was somehow unrelated, or it was so far back in time that maybe it was unconnected. What exactly was your response on that, well, Mr. Lundgren?
The statement, the notion that somehow this operation was used to justify the request for that regulation is simply not accurate. It did not happen that way. The operation was conducted separate and apart from any desire to have this long gun regulation. That's simply not there. Now, so that just didn't happen.
Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent for 30 more seconds.
The gentleman is recognized without objection for another 30 seconds.
Well, I looked further down in that CBS News article, and it says that, quote, on January 4th of 2011, because the quote referenced earlier was July of 2010, on January 4, 2011, as ATF prepared a press conference to announce arrest in Fast and Furious, Newell saw it as another time to address multiple sale on long guns issue, and the next day Chait emailed Newell, Bill, well done yesterday. In light of our request for demand letter 3, this case could be a strong supporting factor if we can determine how many multiple sales of long guns occurred during the course of this case. I know I'm running out of time. I just ask you to take another look at that. You may not have intended it. I don't know what was going on over there, but clearly some folks had what happened in Fast and Furious. They had that in mind as something to use to support a policy that people in this administration are advocating for. So I just ask you to take a second look at that. This is an article on CBS News website yesterday. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here.
Clearly an attempt to use Fast and Furious as a way to bolster the request for that long gun regulation would have been foolhardy, given the flawed way in which Fast and Furious was carried out.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Griffin.